Me and my friend were in a dark car park by a lake in my city. The lake is surrounded by various car parks and trees. The closer you get to the lake, the further you are from the main road, which takes you out of the wooded area. My friend and I were parked 5 meters from the lake with the car facing the lake. We sat there listening to music and chatting for 10 minutes with me in the driver's seat but the ignition off, when all of a sudden, my friend who was looking out my driver's side window says to me, "Is that a man standing there?" I laugh and look ahead and all I see is the dark lake in front of me and say, "No." He points his finger at my driver's side window and I turn my head and see a man with a cat mask covering the top half of his face, standing 10 meters away staring at me. I immediately am extremely freaked out. The way he was standing and staring at us through the mask was so unnerving. I immediately start my car as quick as I could, to which this man starts running towards my driver's side door at full speed. Thankfully, my doors were locked and he stood no chance against my car. But just as we breathe a small sign of relief that the car was now moving, we see a white UTE following closely behind my car. Now, as I've mentioned, we are in the wooded area with dirt roads and several turns which I was not familiar with. Each turn we made, which were all wrong turns unfortunately, the car would follow us. We were screaming the whole way and not sure what they wanted from us. Eventually, the worst thing that possibly could have happened. I make the wrong turn in a dead-end car park, and the white UTE parks on an angle, essentially blocking me in. At this point, I'm genuinely fearing for my life and the masked man appears from the forest coming at my car quick. I drive around, nearly hitting him, and manage to weasel past the UTE parked on an angle. I finally drove out of there, going the right way and getting onto the main road. The scariest part to me now is wondering what they wanted from us. It felt like more than a prank considering the whole car pursuit and attempt to block us in. I don't know what kind of weapons they had in the car. I thought it was possibly an attempted carjacking, but if that was the case, I feel like there would have been more efficient means of doing so. This happened to me about 5 years ago, and even now, I get chills just thinking about it. I was renting a small house in a quiet neighborhood at the time. It wasn't anything fancy, but it was cozy, affordable, and had a lot of character. The only thing I didn't love was the crawl space under the house. The access door to it was in the laundry room, a square wooden hatch flush with the floor. It was locked from the outside, and I never had any reason to open it. I figured it was just pipes, cobwebs, and the usual creepy crawlspace stuff. One evening, I came home late from work. It had been a stressful day, and all I wanted was to shower and collapse in bed. As I stepped inside, I noticed something strange. My laundry room light was on. I was sure I had turned it off that morning, but I chalked it up to being absent-minded in my rush and turned it off again. That night, I woke up around 2 a.m. to a faint noise. At first, I thought it was just the wind, but as I lay there, I realized it was coming from the laundry room. A soft, rhythmic thumping sound. My heart started to race. I debated whether to get up and check or just stay in bed and hope it stopped. Curiosity got the better of me, so I grabbed my phone for light and tiptoed to the laundry room. When I opened the door, everything was quiet, but then I saw it. The hatch to the crawl space was slightly ajar. My stomach dropped. I distinctly remember it being locked, and there was no way I could have accidentally opened it. Trying to stay calm, I convinced myself that it might be an animal that had somehow gotten in. I shut the hatch tightly and placed a heavy box of detergent on top of it before going back to bed. The next day, I called the landlord to ask if there were any pest issues I should know about. He seemed surprised and said no one had reported anything like that before. Still, he promised to send someone over to check it out. That night, I double-checked the hatch and even put a chair on top of it for good measure. I didn't hear any noises, and I started to feel a little silly for being so freaked out. But around 3 a.m., I woke up to the sound of my bedroom door creaking open. I froze. My bedroom door doesn't creak unless you push it slowly, and I knew I had closed it before bed. I stayed as still as I could, barely breathing, as I heard soft footsteps shuffle into the room. My phone was on the nightstand just out of reach. The footsteps stopped right next to my bed. I could feel someone's presence, their quiet breathing in the dark. Summoning every ounce of courage I had, I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and swung it toward the intruder. There was a man crouched on the floor, his face pale and gaunt, his eyes wide and unblinking. He looked just as startled as I was. I screamed and bolted out of the room, running outside to the neighbor's house. I banged on their door until they let me in, and they called the police. When the officers arrived, they found the man still in my house, hiding in the crawl space. He had a small mattress, some food wrappers, and a collection of random items he must have taken from my house. The lock on the hatch had been tampered with, and from the looks of it, he had been living under my house for at least a few days, maybe longer. The police said they found a notebook with detailed notes about me. He had written down my daily routine, when I left for work, when I came home, even what I wore. There was also a list of plans, though they wouldn't tell me what was on it. I moved out the next week and stayed with friends until I found a new place. To this day, I have no idea how he got in or how long he had been watching me before I noticed something was wrong. About 2 nights ago, I went to see the new Wicked movie with my family who was in town for Thanksgiving. I arrived back to my house around midnight. I live alone in a shared but divided house with 2 other tenants living inside. One is upstairs and one splits the downstairs with me, so there's 3 apartments total. My place is in the back of the house and has a back porch you can enter through after walking up the whole driveway. When I got home, I sat in my bedroom and did about 20-30 minutes of work on my computer. During this time, the house was very quiet and I kept hearing a man's voice continuously talking. Now, keep in mind, the tenant above me is a man, and I know his bedroom is right above mine because I previously lived up there. It sounded like he was talking on the phone just because of how long and continuous the talking went on. I tried to listen and figure out where the voice was coming from, and I couldn't exactly pinpoint it, but it was either coming from through the ceiling or on the other side of my room. Now it must be noted that my bedroom connects to the porch with a door that I have blocked with my dresser. There's a main door inside the porch that you use to get into the house, but there's also the strange door connecting to my room. I couldn't make out the words, but because of how firm and continuous the voice was going on, I figure it just had to be coming from my housemate upstairs. It's the only thing that made logical sense. I just kept on thinking though. I had never heard a single voice come through that ceiling before. Whatever. I'm worried about nothing. After about 20-30 minutes of computer work, I got up to go to brush my teeth, feed my fish, get ready for bed. I come back into my room, turn off the lights, and get in bed. Keep in mind, it's been about 45 to 60 minutes since I first heard the voice, and I could still hear it. Damn, I thought. My housemate is chatting up a storm on the phone up there. After about 3 minutes of laying in bed, I all of a sudden heard my porch door creaking along with the talking man's voice. It has a very distinct sound that I knew immediately was my porch door. I crept across my room and put my ear to the dresser, the door that connects to the porch. Sure enough, the talking was coming from inside my porch, and I could hear the door moving and shuffling inside my porch along with it. My heart absolutely dropped. All the lights were off in my house at this point, so I had a sort of sneaky advantage to creep around my house and get a view of what was going on. I crept down my hallway and peered into the kitchen, which the porch leads into. Across the kitchen, through the door in a streak of moonlight, I just see a man with the long, scraggly hair sitting curled up in the center of my porch, turned around with his back to me, muttering out loud to himself and rocking back and forth. My fight or flight kicked in, and I immediately ripped open the door and started screaming at him to get out and try intimidating him. Looking back, I probably shouldn't have made myself so vulnerable without a weapon handy, but like I said, I was just in fight or flight. I can't explain my actions in this moment other than reacting out of fear and determination to scare him out. This dude didn't even react to me whipping open the door and screaming at him, not even a flinch. He simply turned his head to the side very slowly and said, "My name is Evan." This freaked me out so much for some reason, especially because he still hadn't turned around or shown his face. I said, "I don't care," and kept cursing at him to leave, and he slowly rose with his hands up and said, I know, I'm hiding." He wasn't saying it in a pleading way though. He said it with this almost childlike playful tone that freaked me the absolute out. The fact that he kept trying to reason with me and act so mysterious while still not even turning around to show his face just pissed me off. "Who do you think you are, bro?" I ran him out of the porch and was just threatening him. Now I assume it was just a homeless man who was under the influence of something, as I do live in an inner city area and it's common to see homeless people near my street, but I don't know. The sight of seeing him in my porch and knowing he was in there for at least an hour beforehand while I was sitting right there just freaked me out. I was in full-blown defense mode by the time I opened that door, and I wasn't willing to waste any time to do a character dive on the guy. No imaginable situation would permit anyone to be in my porch like that at that hour. Needless to say, I'll be double checking my porch lock every night from now on.